Hey, everybody. I think we're back. Back after the hiatus. So, this is the Colonel and the Kid podcast. Here we are. I said we're going on hiatus for a little bit. It was 3 weeks, and I was going to work on the next chapters for the Colonel and the Kid podcast and the Colonel and Kid memoir. Guess what? I didn't really do much work other than I located 10 chapters, or I think it was 10 or 11 chapters that were previously edited that I had forgotten or didn't realize were edited by my editor, Gwyneth Duncan, who's helped me do a lot of my editing for most of my writing. Not all of it, but most of it. So appreciate her. And she reminded me that she did some extra chapters beyond the first volume, chapters 1 through 20. And that was the first season of the podcast. And now we're in the second season of podcasts. It's the Colonel and the Kid podcast again. I'm the host, Greg Heitmann. I should mention that right away. But anyway, the podcast is, of course, this is the story, the memoir of my grandfather, Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr., and he's my maternal grandfather, my mom's dad, and I kind of just compiled some memories of him and how our relationship was, and it's to me, very special relationship. So then I put that memoir together, and I thought I'd try to preserve that electronically and through video and audio through a podcast. So that's the spine of the podcast, and then I had branch off into some other weird tangents, and including mostly the NFL for the first season of the podcast. And then I kind of took the hiatus on January 1st, and here we are, January 22nd, and we're back because I couldn't stay away, even though I said I was going to wait till I finished the 20 chapters for volume 2, but as you may notice if you're watching the video podcast, I have a new fancy hat. This is my classic hat that I just got last week, 1 week ago today. And let me get the box here. This is you can see this is the top of the hat box I got. It's O'Farrell's Hat Company here in downtown Santa Fe. And you're saying, downtown Santa Fe? Man, how can you afford that? Well, I didn't have to pay for it because I won this hat. I want a custom hat. This is custom built for my head. They measured my head and everything, and then built it for me. And it's very expensive. I'm not going to say how much it is, but it was free because I won this from Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation banquet. I think it was probably almost 9 years ago, and I lost the certificate for a while. But then when I was moving, I found the certificate, took it down there and asked if they'd still honor it, and they did. So that was about a little over a year ago when I put in the order for my custom hat, and then it finally was finished last week. 1 week ago today, I went to pick it up, and I have to say that it is awesome. I look awesome. The hat's awesome. It just makes me feel like like $1 million. It didn't cost that much, but anyway, that's why I had to come back and do the podcast mostly. But I do have a chapter I'm going to read today for the memoir, and that chapter is chapter 21. It's called The Bomber. But I had to point out some other stuff too, because things change, things happen, develop, and we're getting settled in more and more. And I wanted to point out that although I do have the Buffalo Lake poster up there for those watching the video podcast, I'm pointing to the Buffalo Lake poster that I located. I think I talked about that the last time we met. But, maybe you don't know. Who knows? I don't know how observant my audience is. I don't even know if anybody watches the video podcast available on YouTube. But I got a new decoration back here. What I'm pointing to now is on the wall behind me, and it's the skull for the model, the photo on the photo. Well, it's the cover of the Long Hollow book, the first book in the series, the Charlie LeBeau Mystery Series. And I finally got that mounted on a plaque. I had a different skull up there. That was a mule deer skull. It had some little beadwork on it, and I took that down and replaced it with the I guess the logo for the Charlie LeBeau mystery series. This was the first book, Long Hollow, and this was the skull. I took a picture of it and did some photoshopping and did some other work and made this cover of the book. But that was the original skull. And well, it's just part of the skull. I cut it off because it had fallen and broken and shattered into a lot of pieces. So I ended up having to reshape it, and the nose piece got broken off. It just shattered. It was just like glass and was so old. It had been out in the sun for a while and really wasn't cared for properly. I did a bad job handling that skull and use it and deciding to use it for the model of the cover of the book. But anyway, I re-cared for it and got that little plaque. I don't know who made those plaques for me. They cut those out and routed them real nice and sanded them, and I stained it and varnished it and then mounted the skull plate on there. It looks okay. I mean, it's kind of cluttered back there right now. And with the lights and stuff, it's kind of there's some few shadows and stuff, so you can't really get a good feel of all the points on it. It's like a 7x8 um antlers on that, or points on those, on that skull. 7 on one side, 8 on the other, depending on how you want to actually count them. And it's really a cool rack. It's a little small, it's compact, but it's got a lot of character. It's got these little points coming out right at the base of the pedicle, I guess I'd call it, where the antlers attach to the skull. So I really get a kick out of that set of antlers. So that's why it's up there, and that's why it's the model for this. But this book, Long Hollow, Charlie LeBeau Mystery, which I think I'm gonna try to reread this here so I can get back into the groove of trying to finish up the series and try to go forward with that and finish it up finally. But really getting in the spirit of just about ready to write something. Um, in the meantime, I'm gonna keep doing the podcast, and I think what I'll do, I'll just jump right into the chapter because I know people can listen to the podcast and get the chapter from the memoir. Again, today it's The Bomber, and more about that. People that are just totally unfamiliar with this have no idea what the bomber is. Maybe they think it's a World War II B-17 bomber, talking about my grandpa's military service, but that's not it. This is a completely different bomber. So this is chapter 21. I'm just going to go ahead and read that, get that called up here, and get that read into the record and talked about maybe a little bit, and then we'll go on and do some other sections of the podcast, or the recurring sections. Well, let's go ahead and read the chapter. Colonel and the Kid Memoir, Chapter 21, The Bomber. And as usual, we start the beginning of the chapter with a quote. And I quote, "Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet," end quote. And that's a quote from James Hartzell, circa 1974, from a Chevy commercial. I think James Hartzell was the ad executive that came up with that idea. And you know, it's American as apple pie, baseball, hot dogs. So then you add Chevrolet out of there. That's as American as you can get. So that's the introductory quote to the chapter, and let's just get at it. Let's start reading. It's a little bit longer chapter, so bear with me. The unusual title of this chapter, quote, "The Bomber," end quote, can be attributed to my niece Caitlin, but more on that later in this chapter. Originally purchased from Brooks Motors in Siston, South Dakota by Grandpa, the 1981 red Chevrolet Silverado half-ton pickup truck with matching topper was the cat's meow at the time. Of course, at the time, American automakers were nothing to write home about, but it was a new truck and pretty snazzy. Grandpa got his money's worth out of that vehicle for 13 years, and then he sold it to me. It was my first truck. How lucky was I to have such a vehicle? If I remember right, the original sales invoice was in the glove box, and it showed a sticker price of $6,500 for the top of the line four-wheel drive Chevy Silverado in 1981. To purchase a similar top of the line Chevy truck today in 2021, you'd be looking at 10 times that price. Anyway, that was my hunting truck, and it went here and there with me for a couple years. And we have a first photo here. I'll read the caption, then try to describe a little bit. Caption reads, Grandma and Grandpa Hagen posed for a photo in front of their garage circa 1982. 1981 Chevy Silverado shines in the background. I believe it was 1982 because of Grandpa's beard. I think he grew his beard for the 75th anniversary of Systems Incorporation. So let me talk about this picture a little bit and describe it. So, well, to correct things too, I had the caption wrong because it wasn't the 75th anniversary. It was the 100th anniversary in 1980. That's why Grandpa had grown his beard. It was the centennial for Siston, South Dakota. Sort of the rule is that the men have to grow beards to reflect the times because people had beards 100 years ago. I think you could buy a shaving permit for $25 or something like that. But Grandpa was a good sport, good spirit about that. Grew his beard. It's a pure white beard with his white hair at that time. I had this totally wrong because I thought it was the 75th anniversary. I looked it up just recently, and it was the 100th anniversary in 19 what was it 95? No, I I don't know. Forget that. It wasn't 75th anniversary. We're not going to be sitting here trying to do math under pressure of the podcast. But anyway, to describe the photo a bit, this is in front of their country house, and Grandpa's in his blue jeans and white polo shirt with his beard and glasses, and Grandma's standing behind him. She's kind of dressed in some sort of pinkish magenta outfit. Looks like a separate. She's got slacks and a pinkish red top, and they look really nice. I don't know if they're dressed up to go someplace, but they look pretty snazzy there. Standing in front of the open garage in the country house, and you can see the back of the 1981 Chevy Silverado pickup truck there. And if you look closely, you can see it's got a 55 on the front number of that license plate at the time. And 55 indicated Roberts County, which is where the county where Siston was located. So that's pretty cool. And the house looks like it's got a fresh coat of paint on there. It's kind of I don't know what you'd call it, burgundy. I don't know what that is. Color on the siding, and then kind of a darker brown vertical siding on the very top of the house there. It's a pretty cool picture. It's sort of I don't know, like a worm's eye view, I guess, a little lower in the way that the camera person is perched. I think it was probably my dad took the picture. Maybe he knelt down, trying to get a better expanded view of the picture. And Grandma's got her hands behind her back, and Grandpa's got his hands in his pockets of his light colored blue jeans. And it's a really enjoyable picture to see. So that's the first photo in the chapter for the bomber. So back to the chapter. When I bought the truck, I was living in Highmore, South Dakota. I rented a house that had a small garage, and luckily my car fit inside the garage because one day a storm reminiscent of the Wizard of Oz rolled into town. Okay, maybe I'm slightly exaggerating the storm. After all, there wasn't a tornado, just golf ball sized hail that really put the truck on a downward spiral that eventually earned it the iconic family moniker. And I have another photo here. I'll read the caption, then try to describe it. In the spring of 1994, Grandpa's 1981 Chevy Silverado started its downward spiral with the indignity of a hailstorm. The truck couldn't be protected from the nearly golf ball-sized hail. My car, shown in the background here, was unscathed, sheltered in the garage in my Highmore, South Dakota house. So anyway, it's a photo I took back with the old film camera, and you can see close up in focus the hood of the Chevy truck and some of the dents in there. And I have about 6, 7 hailstones sitting on the hood there. pretty big hailstones, kind of just sickening to look at actually now. But and then there's my red, I think that was heck was it 91 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme car, bright red. It's a nice car. It was a really good car. Be pretty cool if I still had it, but I don't. Anyway, back to the chapter. In the fall of 1994, the bomber shared one of my most successful long lake goose hunts, at least for my money's worth. I filled mine and my dad's limits of Canada geese with two doubles. Two different flocks came over to check out the decoys while my dad had relocated down the fence line in hopes of getting under some of the earlier flights of geese. It was a pretty good day, and I have a photo here. I'll read the caption, and then I'll try to describe it. Photo of Greg Geese Shadow, the black lab, and the bomber in October 1994. This is one of my favorite photos after a day afield on the Heitmann farm up at Long Lake. So this photo is taken in front of my parents' house back in 1994, and you can see I'm kind of squatted down there with I'm holding 4 Canada geese, 2 in each hand, and of course Shadow the dog. She was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and she's getting kind of a white snout there. And of course, she's not looking at the camera because she was a very bad dog. She didn't listen. She reluctantly sat for the photo, I guess, but I'm squatted down there, and the tailgate's down behind me is Grandpa's truck, and you can get a clear view of the license plate there. It's 55W057, so that was a South Dakota plate, and of course still had the Roberts County on it. You weren't required to get the new license plate for it there. So, and you can see that there's a couple open boxes of shotgun shells, and you can see the topper still on the pickup truck at this point, and it looks like there's a couple of, I don't know, like a poncho there, camouflage poncho, and the house looks good. It's October, the grass is really nice green color still, and the geraniums and the whatever those white flowers are in the planter along the front sidewalk at my parents' house, still in full bloom. I think it was a weekday. I think I'd taken leave to go up with my dad, do some hunting up there. It had kind of rained. It was kind of rainy and cloudy and overcast, so it was a pretty good day to be out in the field. You can see the pavement on the driveway is mostly wet. There's a few dry patches where it dried off, but I'm sitting there with I got a camouflage sweatshirt on, a camouflage hat, a little thermal shirt underneath my camouflage sweatshirt, and I think I'm wearing some old Army surplus fatigues there for pants, and some nice geese, 4 nice geese, 2 in each hand. Really like that photo. One of the funniest things to me, I don't know if people probably wouldn't recognize it at first glance, but you can see from the reflection of the bumper that you can see that my camouflage sweatshirt is pulled up a little bit, and you can see my white thermal shirt tucked in. My pants and there's a gap between my pants and my sweatshirt, and you can see the white thermal shirt luckily covering, so there's no butt crack showing there, but it's reflecting off that shiny bumper. Most people probably don't notice that, but I happen to see that. Maybe I shouldn't have pointed that out. Sorry. Anyway, back to the chapter. It was a little sad to see the truck getting older. It had endured other problems that cost me some money before I finally let it go. It had a small 6-cylinder engine, underpowered for the size of the truck. The valves had some apparent defect and wore away to the point they wouldn't function, and I poured money into getting them replaced. The bomber, as was dubbed by Caitlin, probably when she was 7 or 8 years old, was so titled when it became a bomb around the ranch truck on Grady's ranch after I sold it to my dad, and then my dad sold it to Grady. I upgraded to a brand new Chevy Silverado extended cab truck, trading my car. It was another incremental change in my life. I was back to owning just one vehicle in 1997. For the bomber, the topper was removed, opening the truck bed for easy access to tools. That topper became a home in Grady's calf barn for the cats. The bomber held up for a few years, probably the first vehicle my nieces and nephew drove as they learned to work on the farm. The truck had many adventures on the farm, and as the old joke about taking the family dog out to live on the farm, I could actually report to Grandpa that his truck was taken out to Grady's farm to live out its life. I could fill several pages with photos of the truck in interesting situations. Instead, I will just include a few. And we have the first one here. This is probably the first real good look at the truck. Other photos before this chapter were kind of from the back. Couldn't really see it, or just a close-up of the front of the hood there. But this one, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll get these photos posted on there so you can see them, but I'll read the caption, then describe it. Photo of the bomber at the ranch, surrounded by cattle, circa 1999. This photo was taken by a special 35mm Kodak camera with landscape capability that was popular for a couple years. In just a few years after this photo, 35mm photography was pretty much done. Digital cameras took over, and now cameras are rare, replaced forever by phones with cameras 10 times better than digital cameras from 10 years ago. But this is a cherished photo. It is framed and sits atop the basement refrigerator at my mom's home. You can barely see me standing near the back of the truck. Number 15, a very tame Hereford from Grady's first herd of cattle on the ranch, nearly blocks me out of the photo. So anyway, this is a long panoramic photo of the cattle at Grady's ranch there near Falkton. And in the center is the old bomber. It's a reddish maroon color. You can see it's front center. The cattle are kind of all around there, surrounding it. And like I said, the one you can barely see me in my orange vest from deer hunting. I think it probably just came from deer hunting off the stand in the morning, off the bale stacks, and went out to check on the cattle. And I'm pretty sure Grady took this photo. And you can see the pasture's all brown, so it's later in the fall. This has got to be, end of November when the East River deer season is going on. So it's overcast sky. It's a pretty good photo, just kind of representing middle America and the middle of South Dakota, just that agricultural feel. And I like this photo. And at the time when I wrote this, this is already 5 years ago now. I guess I know it is. And I guess, and I scanned this photo in while I was back home at my mom's after my dad had passed away. And I wrote that it sat on the refrigerator in the basement at my mom's house because it had a special panoramic photo frame for it. And I think I have it someplace. I don't know. I think it's in my possession now, that actual photo and frame. But, now my mom has sold that house and she lives in an apartment in Aberdeen. And man, it's so weird for me to read my words as I wrote at the time and how quickly things can change. And I say quickly because it's already been 5 years removed since I actually wrote this stuff. And now I'm just finally getting it published. Well, it's not even really published yet, but it will be published. And I'm going to publish this podcast so that'll be technically published. So anyway, good memories, good nostalgia there. But back to the chapter. Maybe an all-time favorite story of mine that includes the bomber was from the 1999 deer season on Grady's ranch. I had shot a nice buck earlier in the week, and on the morning hunt, I believe on Thanksgiving Day, Grady shot a nice buck. It was an overcast day, damp with falling temperatures. Grady came back to the house to get some help loading the deer up into the truck. Grady got help all right. We got Kristen and Caitlin, my nieces, his daughters, dressed in some warm clothes. And I joined in as we loaded up into the bomber and to head down south of the house. And as Grady drove closer and closer through the wheat stubble, Kristen spotted the downed deer. "Dad, there's one right there. It's a nice one. You should take that one," she said. That was such a laugh for me, hearing the excitement of a child free from constraints of limitations of her imagination. That a deer would be dead right where we happened to be driving. That excitement in her voice and spotting the deer was so memorable. This one shared experience was just a fraction of the legacy of Grandpa's pickup. I'm sure Grandpa appreciated seeing the photos of the deer we hunted and his old red pickup, his old red Chevy truck in the pictures. And we have another photo, and this was a this is one of the best photos, I think, because the smiles on the faces, including Grady, which it seemed like he would rarely smile when he, whatever, whatever photo he was taking with whatever he hunted. And he's smiling with this one. He's got his two kids. And you know, I think Caitlin's probably 5, I don't know, 6 maybe. And Kristen's probably 8 or 9. Sorry about that. I don't know if that came up on the podcast when my phone rang. I thought I had it turned off, but nope. I thought I had it muted. The spam calls all the time. Anyway, back to the photo I'm trying to describe. Let me read the caption, then I'll try to describe it some more. Photo of the bomber and Grady's 1999 deer. Thanksgiving Day, Caitlin, Grady, and Kristen pose with the buck. Kristen spotted. And I put in quotes, spotted, making air quotes for those people watching the YouTube video. And just on the very, very left side of the photo, you can see that like the front passenger side quarter panel of the truck and the tire there. And so Grady's kind of kneeling down over the deer, and Caitlin's on Grady's right side, holding up one of the deer's right antler, and then Grady's kind of squatting down, kneeling over it. And on the left side of the deer, the right side of the photo, it's Kristen, and she's kind of squatting down and holding up the left antler of the deer, and they're all smiling, looking towards the camera. And I guess I think I'd squatted down to try to get it straight on with them, and it's in the wheat stubble of the harvested wheat field, and it's a great photo. I mean, to be, I don't know. I guess to describe the deer a little bit too. It was a nice big buck, heavy beams, and it had these really cool. I guess I would think they kind of resemble like lobster claws on its brow tines or eye guards, whatever you want to call them, the brow tines that come up the first points off the pedicle and the beam there, and they kind of just look like little lobster claws sticking up because they're double. And then it's got heavy beams all the way up, and it's got, I think, kicker points, just these little stub points on each side, kind of symmetrically on each side of the antlers, and just a real interesting, very good character, very unique character set of antlers for that deer. And Grady has that buck mounted, and it hangs in his garage. Unfortunately, it's in the garage getting all grungy and dingy because it is a very, very cool deer, I thought anyway. And then right below that picture, there's a picture of me, and I'll read the caption. In November 1999, Grady and I took 2 nice bucks off his ranch. Here I pose with my buck, loaded into the back of the bomber. This was an interesting story, and I'll save that for another time. But if you look closely, you can see a chunk of antler missing from the deer's right beam. So there I am. The deer's loaded up. It's in the back of the bomber. That's the head's on the tailgate, and I'm standing there with my hand on my hip for some reason. I look kind of effeminate for for some reason. I don't know. It's not a great photo of me, but I'm decked out in my orange vest and camouflage pants, and I have my typical green bandana. I don't know if that's the same green bandana that I still wear today out as a scarf walking in my walks here in the cold weather in Santa Fe where I live now. And I got my camouflage sweatshirt on underneath my orange vest, and then underneath my camouflage sweatshirt. I have a you can kind of see it sticking out. It's not tucked in. It's a nice flannel. It's green flannel shirt, and I have an orange stocking cap on, blaze orange stocking cap. The deer's it's a nice buck. It's a nice, very symmetrical 4x4. I think it was at least 20 inches wide inside spread. So this is a very nice deer. Mine's not particularly tall. I'm standing off to the left side of the photo and holding onto the right antler. Right near where my hand is, there's below where my hand is on the main beam. The deer took a bullet. Took a chunk out of that the main beam just past the brow tine on that antler. Luckily, didn't break that antler clean off. But I have that deer mounted and hangs up in the back room. That was the second really big deer I got in 1999. The first one I shot was well, actually the third. I guess the first one I shot was 94. And then in 1995, I shot that's the first deer I ever had mounted. And deer was in 1999. And that's a super nice, very symmetrical, just very pretty deer antlers. And I had purchased a new setup for a rifle and a 270 Browning semi-auto rifle with a Leopold scope, and it was just a pretty neat, to me, the ultimate setup for rifle at that time. I thought that rifle is super accurate and holds its sight picture and everything perfectly. I mean, I don't know. I would highly recommend that if you're ever in the market for a deer rifle, 270 um, caliber, 270 Winchester, and it's it's a Browning automatic. I think they call it the BAR, Browning Automatic Rifle, BAR. And it's really pretty. It's really nice, pretty wood stock and forearm and stuff. And I just really felt like that was, and I still feel like that. I bought that in 1999. Yeah, Shields and Sioux Falls during one of my Air National Guard duty requirements that summer, and that was the first deer I shot with it. So good memories. And of course, there's the bomber in all its glory, bright red with you can see the spare tire bolted into the side there, and there's a fence stretcher I think that's behind there too, and a cooler, blue cooler, with white top on it for some reason. I don't think we're at Grady's house. I don't know if we needed a cooler back there. I guess maybe I don't know. I'm not sure why there was a cooler in there. But in the background, you can see that that's just another nice, you know, prairie grass there. That's the reed. I think it's called reed canary grass, and that's perfect habitat for pheasants and wildlife. It's tall, it's thick, provides a good cover for them to stay warm in the winter and get out of the wind. And I don't know, it's just great cover. And I think it was a CRP plot there. And I'll write the story about that deer, about harvesting that deer some other time, but probably spent way more time than I needed to talk about that photo, but brings back such good memories. All right, back to the chapter. I would be remiss if I didn't include a classic Grady story involving the bomber during the 2000 deer hunting season. It was a particularly snowy November, and you can probably see where this is going. We were making some rounds across the neighbor's field east of the house, where Grady had thought he had seen some deer from the morning hunt. This was early afternoon before we were going to head out to our respective bale stacks for the evening sit. Well, Grady behind the wheel of the bomber sped through the field with snow in some spots, bare in other spots, and some areas held some healthy drifts. We ended up getting to a point where we were surrounded by healthy drifts, and Grady looked over at me. You think we can make it? I could see by the look on his face what he was pondering. However, the question was rhetorical. He slammed his foot to the floor and we plowed through the snowdrift. Partway. We quickly came to a stop, stuck in snow, hard packed snow up to the doors. And I have a photo of the bomber stuck in the snowdrift where we didn't quite make it through. And I'll read the caption here. Photo of the bomber stuck in the snow in November 2000. This image requires no caption, but protocols would not be met without a bit of commentary and description. A picture is worth 1,000 words, expletives included. So this this is a good picture. You can clearly see the old Chevy pickup, the bomber, and it's all its glory. It's kind of that faded maroonish red color, and you can see our tracks kind of winding their way through the snowy field. And way in the background, you can see the trees surrounding the farm place. And it's buried. It's up to at least the doors and just about covering both tires of the snowdrift that we made it probably halfway through. Maybe would have a little more speed. Could have busted through that hard packed snowdrift, but we didn't make it. It's a good picture. Anyway, back to the chapter. We weren't far from the house. Grady walked back, got the tractor. I didn't even bother to shovel. I just took a photo of the stuck truck. It was an early digital photo that I ended up using in my working career here and there as a humorous aside in a few PowerPoint presentations with the caption, "Do you think we can make it?" It reminds me of the old expression, if these walls could talk. If the bomber could talk, what tales it would tell. A talking old red pickup truck. I can picture it as plain as day. This would be the redneck version of the 1980s TV show, Knight Rider. It leaves me with an amazing feeling of nostalgia when I begin reminiscing about the days gone by and all the interconnected stories that we weave in and out of life as time pushes forward. There's a recurring theme for me throughout my documentation of my relationship with my grandpa. Although I may see myself as a glass half empty person when it comes to my present thoughts, I continuously look back, shake my head, and smile. I've been so lucky in my life. It doesn't seem possible for one person to have all these great, positive memories. I don't think we can really understand the present as it unfolds immediately around us. It is only after a bit of reflection that a person can compare and contrast the events to memories stored in our heads. With a bit of analysis, we then can categorize and compartmentalize our thoughts. Those bits of stored information can then be recalled as at a more relaxed pace for pure enjoyment with no pressure of on the spot decision making. Again, here I am delving into the psychology behind what made me the way I am. All this, the remembering, researching, and recording of my memories of Grandpa, are ultimately a fun exercise. If nothing else, I'll have had the enjoyment of reliving these escapades one more time as I have documented them in this memoir. It bears repeating a phrase my grandpa often shared: "Don't wish your life away." I'm haunted by the words. I still do it. I violate the code. I wish it were the weekend. I wish it were hunting season. I wish it were autumn. Enjoy it while you can. Be present and live in it. It's all gone in a blink of an eye. As usual, we close the chapter with a quote. Start with a quote, end with a quote. And this is a really good quote. Quote, "The clock is running. Make the most of today. Time waits for no man. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why it's called the present." End quote. And that's from Alice Morse Earle, 1851 to 1911. And again, I didn't write down what she's famous for. I don't know if she's a writer, philosopher, whatever. But she came up with this good quote, and that's the end of the chapter. And a little commentary on this chapter that eventually I'm gonna try to do this and try to summarize all of the chapters with, like, the lesson learned for the chapter, the emphasis or the impetus of whatever message I'm trying to share with these chapters. And some of them are just, I think, fun memories, but this one has a little more to it, I think, talking about, like I said, one of my grandfather's quotes about "Don't wish your life away." So that's a perfect quote, I think, for this chapter and for pretty much how you should live your life. Don't wish it away, you know, wish it was a weekend or whatever I had talked about in the chapter. The other thing that this reminds me of is just what when I think of America, and we started with the Chevy ad from the 1980s, baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet, and that's the American freedom that is associated with the vehicles, and that's what came to me when I was I pre-read this before I read it on the air, so I'd be a little more familiar with it, so I wouldn't stumble through so much of it. But I was thinking, I don't remember what the message was before I got to the end, and I had kind of had it spelled out that this is "Don't wish your life away." But I was thinking, I don't. This message could be easily. It's like this chapter represents the freedom with that bomber, that truck, and everything that you have in America, where you can just get in your vehicle and drive, pretty much go wherever you want to go, and we have that privilege of being able to do that, and a lot of countries don't have that. It's something I was thinking about here where I don't drive that much in Santa Fe, New Mexico anymore. Drive to the store once in a while, but most of the time I go for a walk and I walk over to I have a grocery store that's close by and I walk over and buy stuff there. I don't have to start the car and drive over there or do anything. In my memories of South Dakota and the way I still think about it, that it's so open. There's not that much traffic for the most part. You can easily get from your whatever town you live in for the most part in South Dakota. And you can be out in the country and almost by yourself on the highways and roads. And that is such a luxury that I guess I took for granted for the most part. Didn't appreciate it that much when I lived there. And even recently when I was in the process of moving back from South Dakota back to Santa Fe, because I had moved moved there, worked up there for 2 years in Pierre, and when I was moving some of my stuff back, it was a very bearable drive for me because there wasn't much traffic for the most most of the drive. It's desolate in a lot of places going through western Nebraska and then eastern Colorado. Hardly ever see another vehicle. It made that drive very much a pleasure for the most part because you just listen to your audiobook or whatever, and I don't know. I guess I kinda miss that, just that time to drive and reflect, not be caught up in traffic and signal lights and stuff of the city. So, anyway, that's sort of the couple messages there is that don't wish your life away, and then how lucky we are to be in America and have vehicles and be able to enjoy that open road and that freedom that to me, that's what that vehicle represents. It's a good it's a I mean, I don't know if it's synonymous with America and freedom and vehicles to be able to drive and get away from whatever you want to do, at least for a little while. Maybe you have to come back, but you can go out for a drive and clear your head or do whatever. So anyway, that's the chapter. Chapter 21, The Bomber. So it's a good one. Anyway, I will wrap that up and check it out here and see. We're already 45 minutes into the podcast, so I won't go on too long. But I will put a plug in for the O'Farrell Hat Company. It's who built my hat, and I'm going to hold up their logo here. Um, and I don't know if you can see it on for people that are watching. It's got this O'Farrell. It's got like a coat of arms on here. And it says O'Farrell Hat Company, but I guess O'Farrell is a prominent Irish name, and it's got the coat of arms, and it says Prodesse non nocere, which I had to look up before that because it's Latin, and it's do no harm or do good, do no harm. I think that's sort of their motto for the family crest there. And big shout out, thank you to O'Farrell Hat Company. And if you have a little extra money and want a fancy hat, come on down to Santa Fe and see what you can find. And but I do say, I will say that they have a they have a little sign right on their counter, and it says 13 to 18-month waiting time for custom hats. And then it was like a little chalkboard sign, 13 to 18 months for custom hats, before you would get them. And then in parentheses, we're not kidding. So it takes a while to get your hat made by them. And it's worth it though, especially if it's free. I'm not going to complain about wait time or anything because I mean, this is by far, I think, the most expensive thing I've ever won in my life, and it's just unbelievably uh, crazy for me to think about how expensive an article of clothing that I don't really wear that much that this is, but it's definitely cool. I feel cool. I look cool. I mean, obviously, just look at the. If you're watching the video, you can obviously see how cool I look with my my new hat. So anyway, pretty proud of it. Pretty fortuitous for me. So anyway, I guess I've already talked about the books and the antlers. I had those in my notes here to talk about. And I did have, I'm just going to go over real quick. One other thing, probably keep this podcast under an hour. I'm not going to talk about any NFL today. Maybe I'll do a podcast tomorrow. I think I have another chapter. I think I have 10 chapters, 10 or 11. So I maybe do a chapter tomorrow if I don't get busy doing something else. But maybe I'll talk about the NFL tomorrow. There's been a lot going on with the NFL. And I did the regular season picks and, for the podcast, just doing that once a week at least. Then the playoffs, yeah, just kind of ran out of steam for myself. And I should have probably kept going because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Maybe, maybe I can get, Garrett and AJ. We can regroup and talk about some of the playoffs and make some predictions for the Super Bowl once that's done. I don't think I'll have time this weekend or they'll have time. Possibly. I'll see what they're doing Saturday. Maybe we can. There's no football games on Saturday, so we can maybe meet on Saturday and then discuss our picks and predictions for the conference championship games, and go from there. And then after that's done, then we can reconvene and talk about Super Bowl picks and what's going on with that. But for now, we'll just kick that can down the road, maybe towards Saturday. But I do have the recurring section on here that I want to talk about today because I was out this morning for my morning walk. And it's really nice today, but they have the forecast is calling for a big winter storm. And I think cold front's going to come all the way down. I think the jet stream's dipping all the way down into the middle of New Mexico. And I'm in northern New Mexico in Santa Fe. And so it's supposed to get cold, and that cold front's I guess there's a lot of Pacific moisture. So there's going to be some rain, ice. And I don't know if we're going to be on the ice wintry mix borderline, but it's going to go all the way across the country. And it's supposed to be that's huge Arctic air coming down the rest of the country. We're at the edge of it, but we're not going to get super cold like the rest of the country, but probably down. I think it might get to the teens possibly here. We'll see. But so I was out and about walking, and I saw all these jet contrails, and the way the sky was today, and I guess the way the air temperature is and the air pressures, there were a lot of the contrails were still hanging around above head. So I took a couple pictures, and I made a little Snapchat video for the family Snapchat talking about the contrails slash chemtrails that the conspiracy people think that there's somehow that these airplanes and jet airliners are somehow doing something to the atmosphere and it's affecting the weather and those chemicals are killing people. Who knows? I don't know, whatever they're saying, but it makes me laugh with conspiracy theories on that. So I posted that to the family Snapchat. It's called the Fam Bam. So I posted that on there and I just narrated it myself and then I put a little text on there saying conspiracy capital letters with exclamation points and so I wanted to talk about abusive language. That's the subject here today. The recurring topic again. This comes up here and there throughout the podcast, and I have a topic name for it called abusive language. And so I was just looking at the word conspiracy and wanted to talk about that. So it's cons, CONS, and then piracy. So you combine those, and that's conspiracy for some reason, but it's cons and piracy. So I've talked about that. You know, like a pro and a con. So the and cons, how did you find that? And, you know, the definition of conspiracy is a secret agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal or harmful act. So that's what all the conspiracy theories are. There's somehow these multiple people working to do something evil or bad to the citizens wherever they are, if it's in America or other countries. So we have to break down the word cons, which is like if you con somebody out of their money or something, or you're deceiving them, it's it's cons, plural with con, like a con man out there, um, snake oil salesman. And then we have piracy, the practice of attacking and robbing ships at sea. So I don't know. I don't really you marry those words together, you have conspiracy. So I'm not sure that this is really the best abusive language discussion I've ever had. But anyway, it entertained me when I thought of that in my mind. Then we have this conspiracy, which is a conspiracy, if you will, if you'll bear with me on that. So I don't know. Maybe it was funnier when I first thought of it. Maybe you had to be there in my mind, but I won't dwell on it. I will say once again that the hiatus is over. We're back podcasting. So recording history, and I'm hoping this is working fine because seem like I've been having trouble with my internet. And it would be a real bummer to have gone through this almost an hour and then it didn't work right. Gosh, I hope that's not the case. But anyway, I'm going to sign off. Keep it under an hour today, and we're back for season 2 of the podcast, the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm your host, Greg Heitmann, and looking as cool as ever with the new hat. So we'll sign off for today, and maybe we'll be back tomorrow or this weekend with another chapter or another football discussion. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you to stay positive. You know, this is the new year. We're still in the first month of the year. I don't know if you made any resolutions. I didn't. I have decided my resolution was not to make resolutions. So I'm sticking with that, and I'm 100% victorious, and I'll keep that the whole year. There's not going to be anything that I'm going to resolve to do and then fail to do. So because I didn't make any resolutions. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. So stay positive, enjoy the new year, be assertive, be positive, be proactive. That's sort of my, should I say the 3 B's? Be assertive, be positive, be proactive. And, we're not going to say goodbye. We just say, see you next time. And I will end with this, of course. Knock, and the door will be open to you. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and you shall be given. So, all right, that's the sign off for today. See you soon. And that's it. See you later.